All I'm saying is that it's not a phase. You're not my real dad. You know?
I hope not.
That would be weird. That would be quite odd. Welcome to the Herd Main Show.
Yes, that is what this is.
This is me.
And I'm me.
I'm me.
We're both me.
Are you me?
No, but I'm me.
Oh.
No,
Nice.
I'm John.
I'm Megan.
I'm tired.
I'm banged. That sounds awful. No, I have a single
Bang gang.
bang gang, but it's like my bang gang from the aughts.
Yeah, you have to listen back to another episode or witness a couple of pictures on Twitter to understand that it's not as bad as it sounds.
It's more a Karen bang now that I think about it, and now that I look at it in the capture. I'm not a fan, so I'm just gonna remove this bang gang.
Oh, okay. You don't want that immortalized on the internet?
No, but now I also look like a man who is running for state governor. So, is that
I'd vote for you.
You would?
Yeah.
Okay, put in the comments, Herd. Would you vote for me?
There we go.
For your governor?
Governor of what? I don't know, but...
Governor of the state of denial that I'm in.
I'd back you, so...
Thank you.
Welcome to another episode of the Herd Main Show. I'm going to preface and apologize for my exhaustion. I got shot.
You're going to have to...
I got my shot of COVID, anti-COVID, bleach straight in the veins, just like our fearless leader recommended.
No.
Anyway, that's going to get a little controversial.
That's gonna rustle some jimmies.
Yeah. Fatigue's just setting in. But that's normal, and just highly recommend everybody do their part and get vaccinated, and
yes, please,
just help make COVID go away a little bit at a time, and all that good stuff. But yeah, so I'm just gonna be tired this episode, and I hope it's okay.
That's fine.
It's probably okay.
It's you know what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is, and that's all that it is.
I'm trying a new lighting. This is for our video audience, our seers, instead of our listeners.
I'm very well lit.
Yeah, we've gotten a couple of mentions of some lighting kind of being blah in the videos, and while that might not affect everyone, if you watch the videos, I can see how it'd be annoying. So we want it to be digestible and not annoying. So we're changing things up. Let us know if it's better.
Less annoying than we normally are, just in general.
If it's worse, we're annoying, so we have to make sure we're at least visually not annoying.
I can't relate, honestly.
Thanks everyone again for making Hat Chatter awesome. That was a couple of weeks ago now, and we appreciate everyone that's given feedback as well for our WandaVision episode. That was a weird one because it's not how you review a show. It was very kind of experiential. It was speaking from the heart, and so it's very different, so thank you for supporting that. But Hat Chatter continues to be something people really flock to listen to very quickly and enjoy, and a lot of people shared their Disney memories as well, and their favorite moments and things at Disney.
Yes, we were also called out for being ageist.
No, it's just certain parents are better at handling their kids at Disney.
100%.
And but yeah, so and that's why we do what we do, and why we enjoy doing what we do. Very similarly today with what we're doing, we would love input and feedback and conversation. That makes everything we do that much more fun.
Yeah.
And so today we're doing something different. We mentioned it on Twitter as kind of a heads up for people. We don't normally announce ahead of time what we're doing, but we're ahead of schedule, so we thought we would. And so we are kind of diving into the world. We love to talk about what has happened and what is happening in Star Wars. But what about the things that didn't happen? Kind of hard to talk about, but you have to use your imagination. And so we were interested by the idea of missed opportunities, but not in the overly critical CinemaSin sense of this movie could have been better if they did this, but more so in the story and in the lore, missed opportunities of what would be entirely, drastically, infinitely different if something changed in the films that we love. The idea of, well, what if that didn't happen, or what if that did happen, or what if they did this instead, and so forth. And you can run with that in many a direction. And so we're only going to cover a few, obviously. We only have so much time, and I'm only alive for so much longer, today at least.
No.
So uh, feel free to share your own inputs. We are specifically this episode talking about the prequels.
Yes. Would you say our favorite trilogy?
I like not to commit to things on audio recordings that I could then be countered with later.
I agree with
I
that.
plead the fifth. Um, it's very highly enjoyed. I love these movies. And so we kind of evolved from originally just let's come up with 10 things.
Mm-hmm.
Then, okay, well, let's be fair because we might favor the prequel trilogy, specifically, was what we were worried about, but we might favor one over the other of like 10 things that Anakin could have done differently, and then one thing that Leia could have done. Like, we didn't want to misalign it. We wanted to be fair to everything. So then we were like, okay, well, a couple from each. And then it turned into what it is now, where it's like, okay, let's just focus on one trilogy. So this is a peek behind the curtains of how we make episodes. We just keep working until something comes out and we are recording.
You throw the spaghetti against the wall, whatever sticks.
Right.
Yeah.
About 5 more minutes.
Might be 2 more minutes. I love that again.
So we're focusing on the prequel trilogy, the first 3 films, and that means, though, that leaves the door open for us to revisit and talk about other films and other things that could have happened, and the implications of all of that, and just having fun with schoolyard esque conversations. Because I mean, this is what fans and friends and people did all the time growing up. Was, well, what if, or you know, well, we know from that thing that they're this powerful. So what if they did that special power, and all the imagination. It doesn't change anything about what we got and what we love, but it's fun. It's interesting to it's a brain exercise to think about how much one thing can change everything. I don't know.
Yes, indeed. Sorry, I got assaulted on the elbow by a dog.
There you go.
He just bumped me in order to get me to rub his head.
He do be doing that.
He do be.
Do you have anything to add before we jump in?
I do not. I'm honestly excited.
Good. One of us has to be.
I enjoy this. I'm not one who likes to speculate. I'm not one who likes to expectate, if that is a word.
Sounds like one right now.
About films.
Mm-hmm.
But, I enjoyed this thought exercise, and I think I came up with a pretty good one.
Yeah, well, and that's the whole point and everything. And it's not dealing with unknowns. It's not running with theories. We know what happens.
Yeah.
So I think it's more fun with knowing what happens to think about what could have happened.
Yeah.
It's really significant how different of a film you could end up with depending on what changes and everything. And that was kind of the idea. Is you would think that, oh well, it's one thing. How can it have that big of a difference? But when you think about how much hinges on one person's choice or one person's actions in Star Wars. If that person was on the toilet when that moment was supposed to happen, that's a very different film.
Oh yeah, 100%. I will say, the only thing that could have made the prequels better if Mephisto had showed up, even though they were teasing it the entire movie.
That sounds like a dig at a very particular audience.
It's an incredible, it's a very pointed dig.
So, again, hopefully my energy picks up throughout the thing. Otherwise, don't take that as an indication that I'm not excited about this. Because I think it's going to be fun. Yeah. I think it's going to be fun.
I know you're excited.
But these are the things I do for you. These are the things I subject myself to deliver to our audience. The half-baked pizza that's been jostled around by Spider-Man in the streets of New York.
Pizza time.
They would have been so disappointed in that pizza. Anyway, I'm referencing a very particular thing.
And you know what? Spider-Man stole that guy's pizza.
Absolutely.
That's important.
Love those movies.
Oh,
we're going to be talking Marvel on Nerdyverse, so stay tuned for that and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I guess I'm starting off because I have episode 1. So
yes, you are.
I got episode 1, you got episode 2, and then we shared the best of them, episode 3.
Ooh.
Well, not the best of, it's got the most, I think, to deal with.
It do be having that.
Because, I mean, it's the longest of the prequels, I believe, and obviously it's dealing with the most significant points of the story.
Yeah, like there was the question going around Twitter of like if you could have a recut 4 hour edition of a movie, what would it be? And I kept coming back to Revenge of the Sith. Like
I
I
mean,
think that would be.
I
I
think
think
I
that would
think
be.
anything given 4 hours could be a very different product.
Yeah, and you know what? You can make it 4 hours by adding in episodes of Clone Wars.
There you go. You can well, so much longer than that, but
Oh, absolutely.
no,
I'm okay with that though.
yeah, definitely include that in your rewatch. It makes
Oh,
the film so
absolutely.
much better.
Just
Um,
plonk in episode or season 7.
so mine were seemingly simple, but it creates a lot of follow up or a lot of discussion for how one change makes multiple changes or potentially. And so one for episode one was I kept thinking about what if Qui-Gon didn't die. I
Yes.
thought of a few for this one, but this is also probably one of the main ones most people mess around with of like, well, what if? Like, how would the prequel trilogy, how would the whole saga be different? Because we're really dealing with the beginning of the story
Mm-hmm.
with episode one. And so if Qui-Gon didn't die when fighting Darth Maul on Naboo, the implications that are different is obviously the biggest thing, he would have trained Anakin.
Yes.
So it then kind of opens the door for questions like, well, would he have been a better person if he was trained by Qui-Gon?
Mm-hmm.
Also, what would Qui-Gon have done with the Clone Wars? Because nothing that happens in Episode 1 really changes the fact that the Clone Wars is coming and happening. So, for all intents and purposes, we can assume that the Clone Wars still happen.
Yes.
What would Qui-Gon have thought of that, been like in that? Would he have been a general? I mean, Dooku obviously comes around because Maul dies. So, how would it feel for him to have his master show up um, as a bad guy and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff? And then, of course, you know, leading down the road, would Anakin have fallen?
Ah, yes.
So all kinds of things. Like, what are your biggest things that jump out if you imagine that Qui-Gon continued past episode one?
My mind immediately goes to Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what kind of Jedi would Obi-Wan have become if he wasn't, following around Anakin screaming? Would he have as much of a sense of humor as he did? Like,
Well,
would he have become more like Mace Windu?
yeah, well, that's a good point because arguably everything we know and love about him from that point on
Mhm.
um, is because he's a teacher, because he's a father figure, because he's
Yeah.
training this difficult kid.
Like, you can make the argument of um, when Luke comes along, the reason Obi-Wan had the smallest lick of patience to deal with
Was because of
him
his father.
was because of Anakin. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it really, and that's again, I mean, because Qui-Gon is so intrinsically linked to both of those characters and the
mhm.
futures they have. I mean, it could have gone in multiple different directions. I hadn't even really thought of Obi-Wan as much as I thought of Anakin.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, because I specifically think a lot about how much different the loss would have been for Anakin if Qui-Gon had either died later
Mhm.
or how much harder it would have been for him to fall if he had someone as or less dogmatic as Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest appeal, and I think that's where Qui-Gon's a whole different kind of masters because he's not as dogmatic, he's not as rule-based as Obi-Wan.
Mhm.
So I think Anakin would have developed very similarly. I think if anything, he would have actually had support for
Oh
his
yeah.
decisions.
Oh, like, could you imagine the scene of him going back to Tatooine after Shmi died?
Well, and that's another point though, is would Shmi have been left in that situation? I
Mhm.
mean, at that point, yeah. I mean, when they first land on Coruscant and are dealing with things, we're trying to get Naboo freed, first of all.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to bring up the fact of there's this slave on this very backwater planet. But I have to think that if he was around afterwards, he would have kept in touch. He would have,
Yeah.
checked on her. He would have sent her holograms of Anakin growing up.
Mhm.
All of these things that would have continued to happen. Um, I think it's perfectly fine. She still meets Lars and all of that stuff and everything. But
Yeah.
to think that there could have still been a thread between her and her son if Qui-Gon was alive. It changes the game.
It
And
does.
he could have grieved differently even. Anakin could have handled that entire
Mm-hmm.
situation very differently.
He could have known that he would be comforted instead of, well, why are you? You're not supposed to be attached.
Yeah, well, because in episode 2, the big reaction is more so, how dare I feel?
Yeah.
Like, I hate that I'm feeling things. I'm better than this. It's not that he's upset for lashing out. And he's not upset for the murder, which is a whole nother therapy session. But he's less upset about what he did, but how he feels.
I think the whole thing about him being more upset about like feeling than the murder can be, boiled down to, well, he was punishing them. Like that was his
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, at worst, they're criminals in his mind, so he's justified in that.
Exactly.
Or, I mean, the main thing is they're portrayed as animals. They're not treated like humans, and so there's a big racism issue with
Big
Tusken
time.
Raiders because they're not like they're obviously humanoid. They're obviously sentient. They're obviously people. They're
Yeah.
just different.
They got good boys. They got families.
So again, that's a different therapy issue. But yeah, his lashing out has more to do with the fact that he's feeling, not necessarily what he did because of what he's feeling. And that like you said, that can be treated completely different if he thought that he wouldn't be thought of as a bad Jedi for feeling, which is kind of what it comes down to in a very layman's terms with Obi-Wan. It's just like, I can't believe you'd lash out. I can't believe you would let your emotions get a hold of you. Jedi are supposed to be in control of their emotions and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Instead of you're human, you feel things.
Yeah. I mean, Anakin does a lot of mental gymnastics in episode
He has
2.
to. He doesn't have a lot of support.
Yeah.
Like,
Big time.
he's in a very special place. He's in a very particular place in how he has to deal with things and how he's kind of coping with his environment. Having that environment completely changed by a different master. I mean, and you could almost say the same thing of if he was trained by anyone. I think, though, his best chance was to be trained by Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
His best chance for success, I think, was if he had stayed with, or if Qui-Gon had not died.
I agree. Definitely.
And again, I think about also, the thing with changing the pieces on the chess table is it doesn't affect the current move, it affects the next move, and the next move, and the next move.
Yeah.
So thinking ahead, I also think, as far as Attack of the Clones, having your master come back and be evil, because we don't know too much of it. We do know that he knows his master chose, like, no, I'm going to stay and take care of my people, and I'm going to lead the way my family should have. But he's already tuned into things of the dark side. But would he have gone full dark? Would he have gone over the edge? I still have the headcanon, like in one comic issue where Palpatine reaches out and says, hey, Qui-Gon died. And that's what turns him to the dark side. That's what pushes him to, okay, the Jedi are not only bad at their jobs, but they're evil. And now the only person I liked that was a Jedi is dead now. So, like, would Count Dooku have been manipulatable without that moment? I mean, could Qui-Gon living completely change the trajectory of even Dooku's life?
Yeah. Do you think that Qui-Gon would have been a separatist?
Well, I think the moral implications of how he approached all of that would have been the most curious because obviously he didn't necessarily see it as black and white. He saw good and he saw evil, but he understood that it wasn't any particular side that was definitively one or the other.
Yeah.
He didn't see, oh, the Jedi and the Republic are absolutely, completely right, of course. He would have likely had something to say about, well, what do the Separatists have to say? What is their problem?
Yeah. I think that, I don't remember if it's explicitly discussed in Jedi Lost, but I think that, Qui-Gon had come to understand that politics are a necessary evil through Dooku.
Yeah, well, yeah, because that was definitely Dooku's perspective. So I don't think he had the animosity that most Jedi have towards the Republic, he also didn't have the reverence for the Republic either. So
Yes.
the idea of I'm supposed to, I'll defend peace all day, but like he in episode 1, he's like, I'm not going to fight a war for you because you are a political affiliate. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to represent the Jedi in choosing sides in this, but I'm going to make sure you don't die because I don't think anybody should die.
Yeah, because they're peacekeepers.
Right. So the idea of him being a general in the Clone Wars, like, what in the world? I don't see him being a warrior.
No.
He is the embodiment, I think, of the idea of someone with power and responsibility. He recognizes that I can do things that can shift the tide, but I'm not going to just throw that out one way or the other. I'm just going to do what's right.
Do you think he would have gone into exile?
Well, that's the thing. Would he have been able to? Like, what we don't really have a clean story of a Jedi just being like deuces. Like, we don't know what it would, especially during a time of war, for a Jedi to just leave, where he could be turned or could be, taken for his information.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who knows how the Jedi would have handled something like that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think with Qui-Gon, he's a very interesting character. And with what we got, obviously, he affected the choices and actions of characters long past him. But if he had continued to live and if he had continued to be a part of the story,
Mm-hmm.
how much different that could have been is very significant, I think.
Oh yeah,
So
big time.
that's the first. That's the first. I'd love to hear people's thoughts, specifically on that, and also just another in general. What's
Just in
something
general.
if it was different in episode 1? What's something that you think would have big ripple effects down the line?
Mm-hmm. What if Maul had 4 legs?
Right?
Think about it.
Where do they go?
Think about it. No. Which brings us to episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Very exciting. This one was mine, and
Yes.
I thought long and hard about it.
Yes.
What do you think would have happened if Anakin and Padme had stayed in contact during that 10-year period?
We would have had a better love story.
I agree. Big time. Like, the questions that came up in my mind were like, it would have changed their relationship dynamic for, various reasons. Do you think they would have gotten together? Do you think that Anakin would have, had that longing, or would he have just, been her friend during that whole time? Like, those are the things that I think about.
Apparently.
Like, would it have been more than an infatuation
Mm-hmm.
for 10 years?
Well, and that's something we didn't even get to discuss how relationship advice would have been different.
Golly.
I think part of the reason the contact didn't happen, and I think part of the reason, obviously, that he feels the way he does, and the way his emotions impact him the way he does, is again because he's trying to be a good Jedi. He's trying to quell that. He's trying to put that away.
Yeah.
And again, he wouldn't have been allowed contact because they obviously would have been like a young boy and a young girl talking on, like, no.
Talking leads to dancing.
I mean, I'm not trying to be old fashioned about that and everything, but obviously the Jedi would have had a perspective of like, of course he's going to get overly attached.
Yeah.
So I think that altogether is a big reason why it turned out the way. And that's just my justification because I think it hurts their story to not have contact.
Mm-hmm.
I think it hurts them to lose 10 years. I think the feelings would have still been there. I think actually it would have been worse and more unhealthy because he would have had more time and he would have, good for him for being a good student and not finding a way to contact her.
Yeah.
Had he done that, he would have really been over the edge because he would have been doing something he knows he shouldn't, which means he would be lying more. He would be doing a lot of backdoor things that he shouldn't do. Like, it would be a lot of dishonesty that would ultimately, I think, make his relationship with her more unhealthy. The way he reacts, it just, I think, actually would hurt the relationship. I know film-wise, it would have been nice if they could text and then eventually like,
Yeah.
hey, it's been a long time.
Even if it was like a letter every like 5 years, that would have
But
been nice.
right, but that implies that he could have a normal friendship,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's allowed. So again, I mean, outside of Jedi, um, we don't really see Jedi having, very strong and don't come at me with Dexter, um, Dex's Diner,
Yeah.
with Obi-Wan. I don't think that's a full-on friendship. I mean,
No.
they're very cordial. They work to, he gives him information, blah blah blah. I don't think they're friends.
Hmm.
Um, so for all intents and purposes, I don't think Jedi can have friends outside of Jedi. So it wouldn't have worked out the way we think it would have worked out.
Yeah. I mean, there's no Jedi Rumspringa or Ponfar.
Yeah, whatever.
Like, there is no, okay, you're about to make a big decision, so go sow your wild oats. Go talk to that girl you have been in love with for, 9 years or something. So,
Yeah. Now, I will say, yes, certain elements of like High Republic and other things have changed certain
yeah.
aspects, but at the same time, that's also like 200 years earlier, so I don't know that that's
Yeah.
held up based on
And,
what we see in the prequels.
like, there's been a comic, I think it was a comic, about, what's his name? Oh man, Pyramid Head. What's his name? He's got the long beard.
Kiadi Mundi.
Yep, Kiadi Mundi.
Years and years ago, but
Years.
that was just for the concept of keeping his race alive,
Yeah.
and that was purely sex. That wasn't like a relationship thing.
Hmm.
There's all kinds of things where it's just like to think that if they had contact, they'd be a better relationship for it. Insinuates that they're allowed to have a relationship like that anyway.
Yeah.
So I think it's a double standard. I think we would have had a little bit better of a love story in the film, but I think
Hmm.
character-wise, it would actually hurt him more than help him.
Yeah, it
Or it
definitely
should.
it would have been a Romeo and Juliet situation where they are not in the slightest bit allowed to be around each other, but they still do, which always results in some form of tragedy. Like I've heard real life stories. I've read so many books that deal with, secret lovers, and it always ends up with either one of them dying, both of them dying, someone getting grievously hurt or injured, or just all out familial panic.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
that.
it's okay to walk away from things and have those relationships. Like,
Yeah.
if you believe someone's the one, you shouldn't let family and religion
No.
decide that. And I say religion because that's essentially what the Jedi in this case would be. This is, well, I go to church on Sunday and my pastor wouldn't approve. And it's just like, well, I mean, your pastor's your pastor, but that doesn't necessarily mean he orders your steps and everything.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
if you need to walk away from something to be able to have the love that you feel in your heart is right, then do that. But if you're gonna be like, well, no, I can have love and church on Sunday, or like all these other things, like you're doing something wrong. And that was my thing is, if he had done that, he would have been doing more wrong than in this moment where all of a sudden there's no relationship and suddenly there's all the
Like
relationship.
2 months later, they're married.
Right. So I mean, that's an interesting one because it would have changed both the writing, the film, the story, but it also would have changed the characters and the lore, of course, and everything as well.
Oh, big time.
I think though, at the end of the day, both stories end with them being together. I think it's just a matter of what leads up to that, and I think what the ramifications of that are.
And boy, howdy, are there ramifications.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one.
Thank you. That's why I thought about it.
Yeah, so let us know your thoughts on that. If Anakin and Padme had stayed in touch
Yes.
between films, what would be different?
Yes.
Let us know what your thoughts are on Star Wars relationship advice.
Just 3 a.m. on Naboo. You up?
Or something different. If you've got another idea of how Attack of the Clones and everything else after would be different, let us know.
Yeah, let us know your opinions.
So as far as episode 3, we both have one for that. And
Yes, we do.
you know mine, I don't know yours, so...
Uh-huh.
Because that was for your planning purposes, so we didn't repeat each other, because that would have been funny.
Very true.
I went, you thought this one was simple, but I think it changes a lot, actually.
Yeah, I think it's a simple concept that has ramifications.
Absolutely.
Repeating my brand new favorite word.
Right.
Ramifications.
So what if Anakin went to fight Grievous instead in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith? The reason I picked this was it wasn't a matter of would Anakin still win. I didn't think as much in the terms of just the fight. It's more that Anakin would have been far and away from where he, quote unquote, should be. Because for the story to happen, he has to be on Coruscant. He has to be there to witness the coup d'etat that Mace and the other Jedi lead against Palpatine so that he can then make a decision that turns him into Darth Vader. What happens if he's not there? What happens if Obi-Wan is on Coruscant? What if Obi-Wan went with Mace along Kit and Sasine Tin and, Eth Koth can just stay out of it? No, Agent Kolar. I get those guys confused all the time. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just
why.
leave it alone. But
even PL
two guys that look alike, yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, would Obi-Wan have died there? I mean, would Palpatine have even won? Because Mace, I think, handled the fight. Yeah, I don't think he needed the backup, honestly. No. That was just to provide bodies.
Exactly.
So, I mean, if you got the tag team of Mace, who definitely won that fight, and Obi-Wan that makes sure that Mace wins that fight, I think Palpatine dies there.
Yes.
Which comes back to another interesting what if that we've talked about before, and I think we've mentioned way back on the show of like, what if Palpatine died there? I mean, I believe two scenarios. One, either he already had Sith Eternal stuff and already had the secret to passing on his spirit.
Yes.
And would have done so.
He had the Galactic Crane game, yes.
Or he didn't, and after this, of almost getting his butt whooped, he was like, I need to figure out immortality fast.
I need insurance.
So, either way, though, he dies by the hands of the Jedi. Do they have evidence that he was doing wrong things? Like, they kind of acted pretty quickly. They kind of pushed the hand a little bit. Were they right? Yes, but we know that. Everybody else in the galaxy doesn't. For all intents and purposes, they killed the president of the galaxy with no good reason. So it's like, I mean, he's a politician, but like, what does the general public know about him other than he's got their best interest in mind?
Yes, which would have started the Jedi culling.
Yeah. I mean, I still think that we would have had civil war anyway, because I don't think they had a case for. I mean, he told Anakin in private, and his office would have been secured in such a way that nobody heard that.
Yes.
There was no recording. There's no evidence that he said that to Anakin on that day. Anakin told Mace, okay, we have a disgruntled Jedi who has a history of going above and beyond in the wrong ways a lot of the time, and who might have it out for the Republic for getting rid of his Padawan. He says that Palpatine's a Sith Lord. First of all, Mace believes him on nothing.
Yes.
Which, why? Because he's a Jedi. And that's more of that mentality. That's kind of an issue, though. So, I mean, we have the word of a bad Jedi, public opinion, and that's it. We don't have any proof. We don't have any lightning. We don't have any recordings. We don't have anything that substantiates the Jedi's perspective of, well, the dude had to die. So now, I mean, that's a big what if conversation we've had of what if Palpatine dies. I think that's a part of this question, but I think more so it is, does Anakin still fall, and if so, how, if he's not there? Because actually, I'm going back and remembering, actually, it would have gone completely different, because he told Anakin he was a Sith. Yep. Anakin would be fighting Grievous. So, when would this come up? Would it have come up? Like, what? Like, how does Order 66 still happen if Anakin's not there where he should be?
And even if it did get to that point, like, I still think that there would have been that argument of, this isn't the Jedi way, between Mace and Obi-Wan. Like, I don't think that Obi-Wan would have been going in, just, and then he just started blasting. Like, I feel like Obi-Wan would have been the moral high ground in that and been like, hey, he needs to go to a trial. Like, we can't just,
I don't know because
decapitate.
I don't know because I feel like he would have the same perspective of maybe not maybe begrudgingly, but I think he would at the end of the day still agree he's too dangerous to be left alive.
I don't think he would have killed Maul or Mace, like, straight up. Like, I don't
No,
think
yeah,
that
that
would
wouldn't have happened. I mean, I think it would have been a conversation, but I think at the only way it turns where Palpatine still would have won is if that conversation happens and Mace is distracted enough that Palpatine could have still done something.
That's it.
But in that scenario, Obi-Wan can't handle the Emperor.
No.
Yoda knew that. No one but Mace, in my opinion, could have handled the Emperor, and that was their one shot, and it got wasted.
And they missed their chance to blow.
Yeah. So if Mace goes down, Obi-Wan goes down. So now we've got Palpatine. Now you know that Anakin's going to come back. What happened? Oh, they turned on me. He's going to believe his Papa Palpatine. But now there's no one to raise his kids. There's no Jedi left, unless maybe Yoda escapes. But then we know Yoda wasn't the best influence on Luke either. And that's a different thing.
We would have had the Skywalker twins being raised as killing machines to kill their father.
Well, yeah, it would have been like, no, Palpatine and your dad have to die.
Yeah.
Well, they wouldn't have even known he was their dad because Yoda didn't tell them.
And you know what? Leia would have done it.
Leia.
At 15
absolutely.
years old.
If Leia had the power she has at the end of the trilogy, at the beginning of the trilogy, she would have killed Vader because Vader was the face of you destroyed my planet. You took everything away from me. You are the Empire. She would have gone. Leia, of the two twins, and I know we focus on Luke a lot, Leia would have been the first to go to the dark. In my opinion, if she knew she had the power she has.
I agree 100%. And I think that is the best case for Ben going to the dark.
Well, there would be no Ben.
There would be
Han
absolutely
Solo
no Ben.
Never heard of him. Millennium Falcon? Aluminum Birdie? What? I don't know what you're talking about.
Titanium Hawk?
What the heck is an aluminum falcon? I love that Robot Chicken bit.
You're fine.
Anyway, so like this scenario has huge implications all down the line.
Yes.
None of them ending well, which is why it was interesting to me because I don't see a way they're like, well, if Anakin just wasn't there, Mace would have won. I don't see a scenario where it actually works out that way.
Mm-mm.
I mean, maybe 1 in a million, Doctor Strange style, but like, I think either way, it ends up the same way, but worse in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Palpatine knew it was a win-win. Either Anakin's out of the way and I can, play up this event, or Anakin's here and I can count on him to go with me. Like,
yes.
Either way, I think Palpatine knew I think he knew what he was doing when he was like, "Oh yeah, you should go fight Grievous."
I agree.
Either it happens or it doesn't. Either way, he still gets Darth Vader, and the Jedi still get doomed. I think.
I agree. There was no winning for the Jedi either way.
And by that point,
yeah.
If Palpatine hadn't gotten power, if the Clone Wars hadn't begun, if things hadn't gone the way they went leading up to that, then no, there's no changing it.
Mm-hmm.
Other things would have had to change well before that. By the time Episode 3 opens, the coffin is sealed on the Jedi and the Republic, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, those are some strong points for sure. So, I mean, I'm interested to see if people agree, disagree, what they think overall about the implications of Anakin being absent from the fateful duel.
Yes. Mine is this is a technicality alert.
Okay.
Mine doesn't technically take place in Episode 3. But the implications of what mine is would take place in Episode 3.
Okay.
What if, in the Clone Wars...
Okay, I was wondering if it was going to be that.
It 100% will
not
be
be that, but if it would be
exactly
that
what
period.
you think it will be.
Oh, okay.
Probably. What's the most on-brand thing for me?
Ahsoka.
Nope.
Captain Rex?
Nope.
Oh,
well,
okay.
kinda. What if Rex had made a case for fives, and he was believed and it was investigated about the inhibitor
the chips. Mm-hmm.
What implication do you think that would have on the war?
I see what you're saying.
Like,
so,
because The only reason Ahsoka was able to escape was Rex fighting against his programming. You could say because he spoke to fives
Mm-hmm.
and knew what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, what if more clones believed fives? And if Fox wasn't just a giant butthead and just shot him? Because that's a thing you do. You kill a baby, I guess.
um, that's a big one because I mean, you're talking about if we found out now that there was something in the drinking water of the military that was causing them to have psychedelic episodes that inhibited their ability to complete missions in a hostile environment.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do because all of the soldiers are contaminated? Every U.S. Army soldier right now is contaminated, and we're in the middle of a war.
Yeah. How would that change the
How do
war?
we do? Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Is how do we deal with that? Um, I think even if they were able to get the word out enough, it would at least be able to give a lot of the senators. We knew Bail, Padme, Mon Mothma, and a few others were already on like, hey, we were against the military. Now we're, against the idea of continuing this war. Deleted scenes in episode 3 show the beginnings of the rebellion and everything like that from that point.
Yeah.
So I think if they caught wind of there's something wrong with the soldiers that are fighting our war, they would have had more case to say, hey, we need to talk to the separatists. We
Yeah.
need to talk peace instead of just keep hammering at the nail. Which then I mean that altogether halts because the whole point of the Clone Wars and everything that's going on in episode 3 at that point has to do with it's all about battle, 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 battle until we have supremacy.
Yes.
So if all the battling stops and conversations are, I mean, one could argue that Palpatine has a hand over and in all separatists, but I don't think so. We've seen episodes in the Clone Wars that counter that of, Mina Bonteri was of her own mind. She was killed for it, but ultimately she and others had the idea of, look, we've got to talk to the Republic.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have issues with the Republic. Obviously, we have demands to make, but none of us want to fight a war.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing prolonging that was that they were using robots, like they were using droids. So
Yeah.
they were perfectly willing to keep fighting because they weren't losing civilians in that case.
And it makes you think even further, like, do you think that all clones would be decommissioned because of something like
Absolutely.
that? 100% because they saw the clones as droids.
Well, it would be a matter of, I mean, and look at what started that whole conspiracy was that a clone's chip went defective, killed a Jedi. So who's to say that they can't do that? Who's to say that they don't see a kid with a toy lightsaber and make a poor judgment call because of their chip? Like, can we trust these things to be safe? So, and then without his army, can he take on the Jedi? I think though, I think that, and that's what I was saying is,
Yeah.
Everything to do with my what if and everything to do with Revenge of the Sith is irreversible, essentially. Like, everything that's going on right there is irreversible. Palpatine's winning already.
But what if you get ahead of the game?
Exactly. So that your scenario is exactly that of this completely changes it basically turns chess to checkers. It's just like, this isn't the same deal.
Yeah, and I would love to think that, like, Anakin and Ahsoka and Obi-Wan would do, like, this clone mission where they just sneak their boys out, be like, no, this is my droid, Bimbop, whatever, and, like, get them to a safe place before they're decommissioned. But that's my fanfic.
That would have been
in my
interesting.
own brain.
Yeah, I mean, because it changes everything, because the clone army, at the end of the day, was created to destroy the Jedi. It wasn't to fight the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars wasn't a reason to create the army for the public. But at the end of the day, they were intended for war against Jedi and subjugation of the galaxy. If that army's gone, number one, they can't fight the Clone War anymore, obviously. Number two, he doesn't have the troops to dismantle the Jedi. I mean, I think either that completely destroys his plans, although I think he would just bide his time.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But if the war ends and peace is attained, I mean, the only other thing he could have done was create some alternate scenario of, again, like, all right, I need the Jedi to do something
Yeah.
deplorable. That's like, hey, wait, halt the presses. We got to kill the Jedi real quick. Then we can get rid of the clones.
It's like the meme from the Eric Andre show where he has the pistol and he shoots Hannibal Buress, and he's just like, why would he do that?
Yeah,
Except it's, Palpatine shooting Padme. He's like, why would the Republic do this?
yeah. So he would have come up with some scenario where the Jedi still did something.
Yeah.
But it would have been a completely different game.
It's okay. Palpatine is a man of contention. We know this. He has plans A through double Z. Like we know that he had a plan for every single scenario that came up in his tiny little evil mind.
I don't think he had a plan for the clones failing. I don't think he had a plan for. I mean, I think that what we see in the Clone Wars shows like he's wanting to investigate this personally of what's going on with this soldier and blah blah blah. I don't think he anticipated his clones failing that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one way to catch him off guard is for his clones to fail. I think that's the only thing that really could have changed the trajectory. Although I feel like he still would have been able to bounce back from it.
Of course he would.
But I think we would have been absent, our favorite clone boys in the process.
Dude, like, I think about that sometimes, about how good of a character Palpatine is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for so many different reasons. Number one, he's just a great villain.
Mm-hmm.
He's very well voiced, very well acted, but also, like, he is written in such a way that even just sitting here, we can imagine, like, 1,000 different scenarios in which he would win because he is just that kind of a villain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is to be commended by, like, for George Lucas and all of the writers that have gone into, writing for Palpatine as a character. Like, I don't think we talk about him enough, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, and Palpatine is the reason for this podcast.
True.
The argument could be made.
Yeah.
Like,
And, yeah, he's definitely one of the most complex characters of Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
and he's one of the most layered. And obviously, he's got a hand in everything.
Yeah.
Now that we have the 9-film saga, we know that it was all kind of up to him.
It was Palpatine
all
along.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really interesting to think about ways that could have caught him off guard.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, I can't think of a scenario where we would have completely, just, well, I guess I got nothing left.
Yep.
Yeah, I think if backed into a corner, he would have just gone, all right, well, I'm going to call on the Sith Eternal and Sith Acolytes. I'm going to call on the Night Sisters. I'm going to make my own army and just get rid of the facade.
Everything.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Republic instead of having them hand it to me. So again, that's still technically a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Very different than what we got, but I think he could have had it.
It's unpleasant with the scenario, the House always wins. Palpatine always wins.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just...
Well, and that's the thing is, where he's caught off guard is by people being different, where Luke doesn't do the Jedi thing. Or he does, but not in the way you anticipate.
Yeah.
Rey doesn't do what he expects. Like, the only way to really counter him is for people to be people.
Exactly. And Palpatine always wins. Technically still applies.
Yeah.
Palpatine Skywalker. Still slightly both.
Yeah, I don't think she's hyphenating.
No.
She took that name.
She did.
And I fully support it. So
Absolutely.
that's an interesting one. While not Revenge of the Sith, it changes Revenge of the Sith for sure.
There you go.
So if the clones were found out, how would that be different? That's a big one. And what do you think in general about what could have happened that you think could have thrown off Palpatine's plans? I mean, that's a thinker right there.
What would upset this man's apple cart?
Right. So yeah, all of the ones we've discussed, we'd love to hear your perspective on it, and we'd also like to hear if you've got anything in particular that you think would completely change the galaxy as we know it in Star Wars. Be sure to let us know on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you platform. And make sure that you show us you like the episode, like it, rate it, all that good stuff, and make sure you share it. Be sure to check out our friends at Red5Network.com, our friends at GameInfinite.net. And also keep an eye out on nerdherderpodcast.wordpress.com.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking Rebels very soon over there, and continuing with season 3 and 4 of that, and maybe other things. Blogs are a wonderful world of possibilities, so who knows what we're going to do.
We're gonna blog.
Yeah, we're going
That's
to.
what we're gonna do.
Yeah, you can at least expect that. And then we are back, and I will be much more caffeinated and energetic for our
Possibly.
Justice League conversation.
Ooh boy.
Yeah,
Get ready.
we watched it, we thought about it,
We watched it.
and soon we'll talk about it. And we look forward to that. And also hearing people's thoughts, because we know we have a lot of friends who are DC fans, and we've already expressed that's not our number one wheelhouse. So that was the appeal of this being the first time we really delve into discussing DC on the podcast over
Yes.
on Nerdiverse. So that's the next
Yeah.
episode.
Other than me accusing you of not liking Superman,
Yeah, you've thrown that out there.
I have quite.
I'm sure
a few
it'll come
times.
up. So yeah, so look forward to that, and then other things.
Other things.
We have a great many things happening to be excited about with Nerd Herder, and we hope you'll be along.
We got Bird and Bucky.
We got Bird and Bucky. Yeah, we're going to talk about that when that's over. So that'll
Yes.
be sometime in May, I believe.
So saddle up, just
Gird your loins and
gird
be
'em.
ready.
Tighten your boots, pull them up, pull
Yep.
up your bootstraps.
We got plenty to talk about, plenty to be excited about, and just all the content here at Nerd Herder. And so we thank you for being along for that journey. We thank our patrons for supporting this adventure and all of that good stuff. And yeah, we'll be back soon.
Tell us your favorite color in the comments.
Why not?
I'm just trying to. I'm trying to engage. Is
Right.
what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
You know. Yellow.